Today, I'm going to be talking about when soul contracts don't come into a point of completion. This includes soul contracts that have to do with union. I'm also going to bring us through leveraging this Lionsgate portal for us to renegotiate such contracts. And I'm going to also interweave in current collective tides to include masculine and feminine dynamics. For those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Ashton Monia. I'm a teacher and seer, as well as a mentor to grounded mystics. Now, I'm a full woman, and these transmissions are just full as fuck. They are multi-layered. They are interwoven. You cannot show up and listen to a segment and get the full transmission. You really need to stick with me. So if you can't watch this fully right now, make sure to save this for later. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. And also, I would recommend to subscribe to my newsletter if you aren't already subscribed. If you receive from my social media content, there's so much more to be received. Truly, subscribing to my newsletter is like being enrolled in a course for higher consciousness. The grief. When a soul contract doesn't fully complete. There are divine opportunities that are orchestrated on our behalf to not only support us in our personal and relational lives, but union contracts, soul contracts, pretty much always, if not always, have some kind of corresponding collective component. When I say grieve, what I'm meaning is that when a soul contract doesn't complete, we're not just grieving at a personal level or a relational level. We are grieving at a collective level. And depending on what kind of levels you work with, you might be grieving on an omniversal level. This is no small thing, and a lot of people will not understand the grief that you are actually navigating your way through. I say that divinely orchestrated opportunities that are built upon love but then become loss are their own form of grief. And let me just say that the ones that grieve the most are the ones that see, the ones that know, the ones that fully committed into the process. And in your fully committing into the process, it may be that the other person who was meant to complete that contract with you did not show up to do their part, and you have no control over another person. Divine opportunity is just that. It is a potential. It's not a guarantee. We have to step into the opportunities that we are provided. This is also why I ongoingly, especially in my membership group, also relative to my newsletter, am talking about the collective tides and how do we leverage them, because these are divine opportunities that are provided to us being a part of humanity, but humanity has to step in, and where humanity doesn't, there's the loss of the opportunity. This also connects into timelines, which is a huge part of this transmission today and what I'm bringing through, because if you have a soul contract with someone, and hold on, I'm just pulling up my notes. If you have a soul contract with someone, there are timelines that you are co-creating together, that even that contract may have been about anchoring. And for someone like myself who can time travel and works with timelines extensively, you can feel them, you can see them, you are living them. Even in the current moment, you are living that timeline. In the future, you are working with that timeline to bring in the coding and the things that are meant to be anchored inside of this moment. And so when we have these soul contracts and they don't come to completion, what are we also grieving? All of the losses, seen and unseen, the things that we know could have been made manifest but did not ultimately become. We may be grieving and feeling literal timelines collapsing, falling before us. And all that connects to that, all that means, this is very, very multi-layered. Now, women We process a lot somatically to include through our body. We also, base code, in my teachings, I say base code, our feeling sensation. And our feeling sensation is what brings us into knowing. We know things because we feel the things. And this is how the feminine also leads and is leading the collective evolution of humanity. But let's also remember that the feminine component is an invitation, right? Just like the divine opportunity is an invitation. So she is an invitation into the highest timeline, into the divine opportunity. She can lead and navigate and guide the masculine alongside of that so both of them can meet. And then his role is to make it manifest in the physical. And before making it manifest in the physical, he is meant to revere her, to allow her to lead and guide in the way she's meant to lead, to not arrive to her with resistance, but instead with reception. And in his reception, he takes that coding into his body, through his energetic body and into the physical body. And he uses his masculine nature to be the anchor, to anchor the divine opportunity to earth. And it is only then that the two of them can fully step in through the physical manifestation of what that opportunity is. So if you are a woman who holds templating and coding to include through union, which is why this divine orchestration and opportunity was brought to you through a love relationship, you are the embodiment of the ether, of the coding, of the templating. You may have, and likely have, these are the women I work with, been doing this work for multi lifetimes. And this is also why these kind of soul connections typically have a history of multi lifetimes to include on earth and off of earth. So what else are you also grieving when that thing doesn't become not just the life that you had in this life with that human, but the many lives you've had with that soul? It is so much more to grieve. And again, not everyone will understand, but babe, I do. I see you. This is also why I work with women and I work with couples and high alchemy relationships, because this is not normal terrain. You're not going to be able to go to a counselor for this. You need to go to someone who has lived experience, the embodiment, and also the relational ground level expertise. So how does this also connect into the collective tides? Well, if you've been following my newsletter, then you would know that I've been talking about things like how there is the era of building, and the era of building comes after initiations that the masculine is called into through descending from out here, down from the mind, into his heart, into his body. This is also initiations that I support men with. Seriously, if you have a man that you love in your life, send him my way. This is rare to find and true and aligned. So, as I was saying before, in these kind of soul contracts and these divinely orchestrated loves where there's meant to be union anchored to earth, the masculine has to be the anchor. He cannot do that from up here. He cannot do that while he's heady in his mind. He has to learn to descend. He has to move into the realms of mastery of the feminine, which are dissension, into the dark, into the void, through surrender, reception. All of those things are feminine. He has to learn to surrender into what is unknown. And what is unknown is felt by the feminine counterpart. She can see in the dark. That is the oracular way. But here's where men get stuck. When they're heady, they haven't grown into emotional maturity, which means that they also have definitely not come into the mastery of the feminine feeling realms with inside of himself. So instead, what he does is he submits to the resistance. He submits to the conditioning. He remains up here. When you are not in your body, you cannot feel truth. You will try to attach and grab onto truth through your mind. And the mind, especially for men, has been infiltrated with programs, imprints of a patriarchal matrix and conditioning to make sure that he does not move into his soul path and purpose, which you cannot do as a man without being in your body and connected to your heart, because your heart has the codes of your true life path and purpose. So when you meet a divine woman, you have now been brought into a shared relational field with her. There are heart activations that naturally happen. And if instead of grounding them down, you go up and out, you're not doing your part. In my teachings, I call this where levity means density and density meets levity. And what I teach, which is full integration. We're talking about integration of masculine and feminine dynamics. This is where also the masculine enters the realm of the feminine, where she holds the base code, where she holds the mastery, and the feminine enters into the realms of mastery relative to the masculine. So when we think about this, like the cosmic father, the father sky, that's up, right? And we think about Mother Earth, and that is down. It is by way of the masculine moving down, descending, that the feminine rises and ascends. It is by him moving beyond the resistance energy, becoming more structurally stable and centered within his own body, that he becomes the gravity that allows her greater levity. And when the feminine goes into greater levity, she is also entering the etheric templating. There's a sacred figure 8 process that is meant to translate between each of them, that brings these soul contracts into places of completion. So it is devastating to women. And I'm speaking to women in this particular way because take accountability. Don't get all triggered and resist. That'd be a part of the problem I'm talking about. Women have been stepping into the divine opportunity far more than men. This is part of why we have a gap in the collective masculine and feminine. And so she has been saying yes to the divine opportunity. She has been holding her part, and it aches so deeply inside of her soul and beyond when the masculine does not step in to meet her to do his part. This impacts both of them. This impacts her and him differently, because when he submits to his resistance energy, he is not the one that sees. He is not the one that knows. She is the one that saw. She is the one that knows. She knows the losses more than he does. Now, what can happen with this when we have a soul contract? And this connects into the gravity and the levity piece that I'm talking about here. A man's role, the masculine's role, is meant to be that anchor, right? So that she can have that levity. But when he doesn't fulfill the soul contract, it brings in the inversion. And so the inversion would be like they part. She holds the coding of that timeline. And he decides, oh, well, I want some of that. I am entitled, actually. I'm entitled to that. I want to feast off that timeline without contributing to it actually coming to full fruition. And so he will feed off that timeline. And when he feeds off that timeline, what happens is he brings those higher timelines down into patriarchal imprinting, down into the density that is the debris, down into the place of resistance energy. And she can feel it in her body. So not only did she see and she knew more, but she sees the timelines collapsing, and he is holding her down like a ball and chain, while she is the one who committed into the highest. Now, I don't want you to then take this as, oh, well, now I cannot strive into the highest. It just means, babe, that the highest has shifted. The highest has shifted, and we got to be really fucking real about this. Really real about this. So instead of bringing her up, he brings her down. And simultaneously, because she chooses the highest, she actually is bringing him up, even while he is bringing her down. It's very difficult to navigate. Now, when you choose to, let's say the masculine did not meet you inside of the commitment. Let's even say that he was saying, yes, I am in it, but it was not embodied, his yes, and you could feel it. And you said, no, I will choose as I always choose. And how I choose is the absolute highest. I commit into that above all else. That now means that you have to leave to access the now potential highest. That doesn't mean that you want to do that. That doesn't even mean that he allowed you to have options any longer. It was no longer an option. So you move into a different trajectory, but there's still a soul contract. And these can be really tough to navigate, y'all. So freaking tough. I work with contracts. I work with timelines. I am masterful in this terrain. And we can think with our mind, oh, well, you know what? I said no, I closed the door. Okay, it's done. That's it. I'm sorry, but that's not how this works. It can be multi-layered. There can be so many connections that you have to unravel the knot, right? And so it's like unraveling one thread is just one thread till you finally get to the center. And there's also a component of this, which is divine timing. And I know sometimes divine timing is so wonderful. When I work with clients one-on-one, we're like meeting in session, divine timing. You can feel it like in the air, and it's so magnificent how it amplifies everything that we do. But then there's the part of divine timing where you're like, I can't move this direction yet. I can't do that, even though I really want to. I have done so much with a connection that I had that was deeply meaningful to me. But the thing about this is that we had a very extensive contract. And in that contract was even to, he was a finder, I'm a code collector. We traveled around the galactics before even coming to Earth, with the intention of restoring the planet. This is part of what I do. This is the work that I have. I met him during the fall of Lyran. So we're starting to tie in Lionsgate portal. And I meet souls along the way who have lost their homes, the civilizations that they were a part of, planetary systems. They have come into some kind of collapse and fall. And there are souls that meet me and go, oh my God, wait a second, you restore planets? Can I learn from you? Can I study underneath you? Could we do this thing together? Like, I have clients that I work with, and we have memory about all of this, and we actually work with this in our client work. Not everyone, but there are some clients that I have that this is the case. And so it is very, very real. So not only and I'm giving you an example through my lived experience, not only then is a soul contract about establishing something like union, but wait a second, it's also about restoring a whole civilization, a planet, and everything that that means. And there's so much to this. And then imagine having all of these points all inside of the omniverse where the two of you have come together to code collect. Okay? But this other did not uphold what they were meant to uphold. Every thread is connected to every code. There are contracts inside of contracts. I have gone into the pure libraries. I've gone into the Akashic, which has the ick in it, as in it's not the Kosh. It's not the pure library. I have rectified the books. I have identified deeper hooks between us. I have redone contracts. I have done emotional work, physical work, heart work, womb work. I have like done so much. It's unbelievable how much I have done in order to collapse this soul contract with this other person who did not do their part. And still, there are layers that remain. And it has been years and years and years. I want to express this one because you could be someone who was like, nope. And you're like, it's done. Is it? Is it actually done? Did you fully grieve it? Because if it's not fully done and you said it was done, you didn't fully grieve it all the way to the bottom. You also did not retrieve the things that you need to retrieve. And let me be very clear that this is also a declaration of your sovereignty to include, backed by your choosing and what you get to take with you. I say that when we are timeline hopping, it's like a fire. You grab the essentials and you go. You have to claim the coding. Yes, there is more weight on you because now it's not a two-party system, but you get the treasures. They don't get the treasures. They didn't choose to do the work to receive the bounty. You did. So a part of the soul contracts actually coming into a place of full dissolve means that it's just like a divorce. You get this, I get this, right? Except you're like, I get the whole motherfucking thing because you didn't do your part. You can get what comes into through the resistance energy. You can get this and this and this and this and this layer because that's what you decided to be with. That's what you decided to align with, to give your allegiance to. And I'm going to take this, and this. You claim it. Okay, collective tides and masculine and feminine dynamics. The era of building that I mentioned earlier, it necessitates men stepping in to the divine opportunities and becoming the anchors. And we have a real big problem that's been happening. Because especially since 2012, we've been offered a significant amount of divine opportunity. I'm sure many of you have felt it and you were just like, there is nothing that can stop this. Well, I'm sorry to say that there is a significant amount of resistance energy that was not anticipated that has been pushing back against the divine opportunity. And men specifically have a relationship with resistance energy. We cannot fully complete what is meant to be completed without them. This is why I'm constantly encouraging the masculine to step in and calling him into initiations and pointing to the conditioning, pointing to the blocks, pointing to even, these are like trigger points for a lot of men. And the ones that cannot receive me are the ones that are giving into the resistance energy. The ones that can see me are the ones that receive the coding. They receive the activations. They receive the divine opportunity. The highest timelines necessitate masculine anchors, and we are seeing how to include through these soul contracts and these divine union opportunities where the masculine did not step in, the ways in which it impacts the timelines. Now time has passed where these opportunities were presented and there were men that did not step in, and all of that corresponds to timelines. So if you're like, are we in a fall? Seems like there's a lot of fall and timelines going on. Yes. I'm just a messenger. Like, we cannot bypass what is. We have to be willing to be with it. And then from that place, then we choose, and we choose powerfully. and we reorganize and we find ways. We get really creative as we can possibly be, but we need to be with what is foundationally true and real. So here we are. Here we are. You may very likely be in a space where you did not anticipate that you would be, because what you saw, for example, when you had a sacred union kind of partnership show up, the timelines looked very differently. And how you sensed life would be is different than how it is now. We did not anticipate what is going down now. We did not anticipate the pushback. Okay. How can we utilize this Lionsgate portal, which is why I'm doing this live at this time, because we're inside of Lionsgate portal in 2025. If you happen to be catching this later, this does not mean that you still cannot receive from this transmission. You absolutely can. I trust that you are here at divine right time. Lionsgate portal. There is an archway, there is a door, there's always something new to step into. This man that I had this soul contract with, we met during the fall of Lyra, as I mentioned, and so I became very familiar with the Lyrans, and I ended up having quite a few male, in particular, friends who are also Lyran. If you work with me one-on-one, you know. If you haven't, then you may not until this moment. I'm able to see into other people's memories. I'm able to see them multidimensionally. I'm able to also remember myself if we had some shared memory alongside of you. And so I learned a lot about the Lyrans, and I offered this man his own memory back. This is something that the feminine does. She is the womb. She is water. She is memory. She is all time, all space. So the things that she remembers may even be your own memories, and suddenly those become activations and initiations for you to step into your wholeness as a man. You can, of course, step in, or you can resist, and you can deny the opportunity before you. So with that, there was something that I discovered that many Lyrans did. They created a technology at the time of the fall of Lyra. So this civilization was invaded by reptilians, and there was war, and so many Lyrans became nomadic. They were homeless, they were displaced, and then they went out into all of these different places among the galactics, and they built relationships with a variety of different species. Give me a moment, because I'm just feeling the energy of that. Part of the contract that I had with this person was to restore Lyra to an original form. Now, the technology that I'm talking about that many of these Lyrans engaged in, because they were very much so an independent species, and it wasn't until war came knocking at their doors that they were like, oh my gosh, wait a second, like community matters, unity matters. So what I'm talking about here is like pointing to how the Lyrans have this base kind of masculine coding, independence, right? They were like extreme independence. That meant that there was a missing feminine element, which includes feeling. And so many of them were not able to process what had just happened. They didn't have the capacity to process what just happened. I want you to be listening to this through masculine and feminine dynamics, because how many men do not have the capacity to process what is happening, to include processing the things that come up when you have a union contract in place. All of your shadow material will come to the surface. Am I not correct? And so what they did is create a technology that I call the heart box. And the heart box stored the memories of the destruction of Lyra for a later date, when they had the capacity to actually process it through. We think about, for example, the heart of the lion, right? And so this is really about the Lyrans restoring their own heart lines. I just came back from a grid work mission and I did some really big work that was restoring a heart line. To restore the heart line is also to restore the mother line. This means that we are integrating the feminine into the genetics of Lyra and Lyrans that were missing to bring them into a higher integrative element. Okay. And so there becomes a role similar to what I'm talking about relative to the collective tides for the Lyrans to actually support and anchoring these heart lines to bring them down to earth. In order to do so, you also have to pass through grief portals. Grief is a process and it builds your capacity. When you lack emotional maturity, you have a very low capacity. And what that also can turn into is amnesia. So we're experiencing a grand amount of amnesia on earth without the memory. Remember that I said that the feminine is also memory. And when she holds that memory, when you remember someone over multi-lifetimes, not just in this life, remember that I also said that that turns into a grief of its own category. You're grieving to a higher capacity, a higher degree that is equal to the memory that you now hold. All of these things are interwoven. All of these things are connected into this process. There's a lot more that I can say about the Lyran piece, and maybe I'll create that in my newsletter to give a little bit more galactic history and connection here, but to just kind of give the pieces and parts of this that are needed for this transmission. This also means that there are falls, including timeline falls, that connect to the heart that are needing to be repaired. And we can do this in our own process to include as women who have not been met by the masculine in order to fulfill the contracts as they were originally established. We are able to move through this gateway, this door. And look, all of our Lionsgate portals, they look differently. They're going to sync up really well with what it is that we need, the medicine that we need. So this is one door. This is one corridor that I'm talking about. It might be a big one, but I'm bringing it through for the people who could utilize it. So there is a door, there is a corridor, it is opening. You can step into it, and inside of it is a renegotiating of these soul contracts. You may actually be brought to Lyran councils, in particular if it has something to do with the Lyrans themselves, such as what it does for me personally. And you can bring in to negotiation for example, like divorce, like mediation of who receives what and where and why. And now we have open seats. Now we have a problem with the open seats. Yes. It can be that when there's an open seat, like someone doesn't fulfill their soul contract or their mission, that there becomes a replacement. However, we have a gap between the masculine and feminine. So this is leaving open seats. Okay. This is very problematic. This is not mean as a powerful, sovereign, wise, mystical, seeing, knowing, creating type of woman that you cannot sit down at that table and negotiate the absolute highest potential and possibility that remains on the table or even wasn't there before to be leveraged into something new and different for you. And I would encourage you to do so. I would encourage you to step through the doors, step into the space where all of life is being created simultaneously, where all of the potentials exist. And this is what I'm doing. This can call to you, or it may not call to you. You can even fall through it. What do I mean? You can fall for the space of co-creative potential and opportunity, almost like this door is just opening up and you completely let go and you fall into the void of the mother herself. This means that what you're bringing to the table is the ultimate authority for creation itself. It's the space where all potentials and possibilities ultimately are birthed, even the ones that have not been made of manifest, even the ones that are totally unknown, even the ones that were never on the table, even when these contracts were formed. The goddess, the original womb, the ultimate authority. I am giving all over to her and allowing her to deem what is most appropriate. I am not engaging directly, even though I'm a part of the collaboration. I am giving it all to her. May it land where it lands. So if you want to take it to that space, you can also do that. That is absolutely an opportunity. Okay. This is going to be all for me today. If you appreciated this, please make sure to share. Again, if you're not already subscribed to my newsletter, make sure to subscribe. My link is in my bio. You can also put newsletter in the comments and I will send you a link. When you subscribe, you also will receive access to the newsletter archive, which has a lot of value. Every transmission that I do is a written transmission that also includes a video transmission. So these are deep, they are full, and it is completely free to you. Do it. As always, so much love to each and every one of you.